Hello, what is up, everyone? This is Vincent here, and today I am honored to be sitting here for the first time with two guests. I have Tim from the Geek Easy podcast, and I have Brandon from the Easy Gaming podcast.
What's going on, guys?
Easy Going Gaming YouTube channel.
Easy Going Gaming.
I'm totally messing this up. Welcome to Vindicated Entertainment. Happy to have you here. Sorry I butchered your channel's name, Brandon. It actually throws me off a lot that you both have Easy in your names.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Easy word in there. It's
and in my mind it started like mixing together where I was thinking like, okay, it's like Easy Gaming, Game Easy, and I was just like going like I kind of have
we'll have to have a crossover event. The Geek Easy Gaming, yeah.
For
Easy
sure.
Going Gaming, Geek Easy Going Gaming. That's actually really hard to.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast, guys.
Yeah, right.
We'll make it a thing. The viewers will have to say it 5 times fast with us.
All right, so with that, I think it's best to kind of do like a little introduction of ourselves and our experience with Final Fantasy for our viewers watching who don't know who we are. I think it'll be good for them to sort of know what perspective we're coming from. So I'll just start us off and say that I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I actually have some of the classic characters from when the game originally came out. And I have much more, but I wasn't going to bring a whole like armful to the table. But my dad got me Final Fantasy VII when I turned 7 years old. He thought that would be a great gift for me when I turned 7. It came out when I was 5 though, so I didn't get it as soon as it came out.
Right.
Him and I played the game all the way through together. We maxed out the amount of time to where the clock went to 99, 99, 99, and you could not see the time go up any further. And then we got and before that we had played Final Fantasy 1, we played 2, we played a little bit of 3, but I never beat it. We played 4, and we played, unfortunately I missed 5 and 6, and then we played 7, I played 8, I played 9, I played 10, I played 11, and I played 13 in the sequels, and I played 15. So while I have not played all the Final Fantasies, I am pretty well versed in that universe. I will say though, I have never went back to play Final Fantasy VII since I was a kid, so okay. I don't remember all the smaller details. Like I remember the overall details, and it was one of my favorite games growing up, but I never went back to play it. So maybe Tim, maybe you have more knowledge in that department. I'm not sure. So what's your experience?
Well, so for me, I actually got into JRPGs through the Mana series, Secret of Mana, Trials of Mana, and then that turned into an addiction to the first 3. And then I dropped off until Final Fantasy X. I didn't actually play 7 when it came out.
Interesting.
Yeah, right? It was kind of weird. And I played 10, loved it. Played 12, loved it. 13 and all of its spin-offs and sequels. And then weirdly, I played Crisis Core, the 7 spin-off, before I played 7.
How did you manage to play Crisis Core before 7?
I don't know. Well, admittedly, because they had the special edition at GameStop for $5, and I was like, yeah, I'll buy it. So I played Crisis. Kind of a weird story transition, because after like I got halfway through and was like, okay, I should probably go play 7 now, because things stopped making sense. So it was very, very late in the Final Fantasy timeline that I actually saw what 7 looked like. So I do have a little fresher memory on what it was going into the new game.
Interesting. And what's your perspective? See, when I played 7, that was the best games had to offer in terms of visual quality. For you, that was not the case. So how did the game hold up to you when you went back to play it after playing 10 and the other Final Fantasies? Because a lot of people love 10. Like a lot of people hold that as being their favorite.
Yeah, well, so I keep an NES. I have one of those like NES, SNES conversion players on me wherever I go, wherever I move. So like,
smart move.
I'm, yeah, right. And N64's Banjo-Kazooie, which has one of the just most horrible graphics to go back and see now, that I play like every 3 years. So like, I was like, I could accept it for what it was and be like, okay, this still has gameplay that I love. But man, it looked like Playmobil.
Yeah.
it was like little Playmobil figures running around. It was weird.
Yeah, no, I can respect it though. My favorite game has been Final Fantasy Tactics, and that game has a very like retro look
game.
to it. Thank you. I'm glad that you played it. It's an amazing game, but it's not known for like having the most amazing graphics. But that doesn't. You don't have to have amazing graphics to have an amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what about you, Brandon?
Well, guys, I'm on the whole opposite side of everything.
Final
Fantasy VII, the remake. Yeah, exactly. And Final Fantasy VII, the remake is the first time I've ever played a Final Fantasy video game.
Whoa, are you serious?
Swear to God, in my
That's
entire
awesome.
life.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have you here, Brandon, because I feel like we're going to be able to get different perspectives with you being here. With that being said, what made Final Fantasy VII Remake the one that you jumped into play? Because they tried to make 15 a good entryway for new people, but you didn't give 15 a shot.
Right. Well, see, I just got back into gaming like hardcore about 2000 and I would say 16 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know when Final Fantasy 15 came out, but I'm thinking it was like a little bit before that.
I think it was 2016.
Yeah,
okay.
That sounds right.
So yeah, it was right around that time period, and I just wasn't on the radar with like knowing everything that was coming out at that time, all the new games and stuff. So I just missed it by chance. Really, I didn't know a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I see those big numbers, 15, 18, 39, I'm like, well,
why would I get in now?
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's a continuation.
Yeah, and that's what I thought too. And then now, as everything is, I'm a little bit more into what's going on in the world of gaming and trying to check out as much video games as I can. I learned that Final Fantasy VII was a lot of people where they first jumped into the Final Fantasy game in 1997. So I was like, okay, well, I guess if they jumped into the 1997 one for the first time, I can jump into the 2020 for the first time and be like, at least on that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what is your overall impression of the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Just your overall feeling. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
Yeah, I absolutely loved this game. I've played a ton of games over the past few years, and since Red Dead Redemption 2, I think Final Fantasy VII the Remake is my favorite game since Red Dead Redemption 2. It is phenomenal from front to back. I have like maybe 2 complaints and about 55 things I can tell you I love about it. I love that game.
Yeah, and for me personally, I can say that I can name like complaints. I could probably name like a list of them. The thing is, these complaints are so nitpicky that I feel like it does such a disservice to the game, because these nitpicks would be, they're only like a 0.01% fraction of the enjoyment that this game has. So while I could write out 10 things I hate, 10 things I love, like those 10 things that, well, I don't hate them, but the 10 things I could complain about are so minor that it's like I almost don't want to talk about them, even though we probably should. Tim, what's your overall impressions when finishing the game? Did you love it or hate it, or how'd you feel?
I absolutely loved it. And for a lot of reasons, because and I like that you said it would be nitpicky to find to really call out these flaws, because you're right, and I've loved games that are bad, and so like to nitpick at games that are very small, it's hard to do and feel good about it. So yeah, so the story is just phenomenal. I really, going into it, I expected just a reskin of 7, because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. I didn't want to watch too many gameplay videos. I didn't play the demo, and then what they did with it, because it was like, okay, new combat system, like that's cool, like this good, and then things start to change, and everything like goes out the window, and suddenly it's a whole new the questions you have to ask yourself get crazy. So like, I would have loved it if I had never played 7. So like, I'm really glad you have that perspective, Brand, because I think it's a good, like, something good in of itself. But like, seeing what it's become is really. I've actually gone back and started watching cutscenes side by side from the original game versus the new one. Just to be like, wow, like.
Yeah. So with that being said, before I forget, I need to mention to anyone watching right now that we are going to spoil we're gonna spoil a lot here. This is going to be a super spoiler video. We're going to be diving in deep. If you're afraid for any type of Final Fantasy VII spoiler counting the original game, which I mentioned that to Brandon, so he's okay with it. But if you're not okay with it, then go ahead and click off and subscribe. But otherwise, come back later. Please. Yeah, come back a few years later when you're ready. But yeah, we're gonna dive deep into this, and I feel like even though I'm a man that loves to go chronologically, I feel like we need to talk about this ending. I feel like when people come to see this video or listen to this, they're going to think like, man, this ending, we have to talk about this. So I don't want to like dangle that carrot all the way to the end of this video.
All the way at the end.
With that being said, before we dive into this, I am really curious to hear Brandon's take on how much do you think this game differs from the original story? Do you know like what's the same and what's different at all?
Nothing. I know nothing about the differences. But what I will tell you is I have a plethora of questions for that ending. That ending had my brain spinning, and I never was able to find what the heck was really going on with the story.
So to sum it up, the first 95% of the game is like beat for beat the original Final Fantasy VII, but expanded on, where you get to see more backstory from the characters. So seeing Jesse and Biggs and Wedge and going on blowing up the reactor and seeing the Scorpion, fighting against the Hell House, meeting Aerith and she's the flower girl. All of that stuff is in the original game. It's just kind of told a little differently in the remake, where they just really expand and give more character moments, gives more depth to things, breathes new life to it. But so like everyone like that was a hardcore fan of the original was loving this game, but some of them fell off because of the end. The end where they mention the Whispers and you fight Sephiroth and you're fighting against Fate and all of that stuff that you have in that last chapter is completely like new and made up for this remake, and that has soured a lot of people. But I'm happy that Tim is not one of those people, because I didn't know if he would be going into this. But one reason why I wanted to do this discussion is because I actually empathize with people who are concerned and worried about what's in store for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I can see the next game. I can see the worries and the concern, and I can kind of feel that. But I want this video to be something that can reassure people and have a more hopeful and optimistic perspective, and why we have that perspective, because I'm not sure what points Tim has to bring, and I'm super excited to hear his perspective on it. But I at least know that I have things that I can bring to this that I feel like can comfort those people who know the original story and are very scared by the way the remake ended.
And Brandon, to give you an idea of how much more screen time some of those characters get, it is so much more. In the original game, I didn't even get the joke of Biggs and Wedge from like the Star Wars reference. It just like they were so briefly mentioned, briefly there, and it had so few lines that right over my head.
I'll say this:
right.
Most people in the original game didn't even know Jessie was a girl.
That's fair.
Wow.
Yeah. And on top of that, yeah, like just you never got to go to her parents' house. You never had that whole mission where you're stealing the ID card. You don't get any of that development for them. In the original game, you just see them, you go on the mission, you're like, hey, I'm Cloud, hey, it's Biggs and Wedge and Jesse, and then you leave, and then you come back, and then they die. Like, whenever that scene happens.
That mission where you go into Jesse's house, I think that might have been the point in the story where I was like, I'm hooked, I'm sold.
Yes.
Whenever you see what happened to her, her dad, we're doing spoilers here, so I was like,
full spoilers.
Yeah, but when you see her dad laying there and it's the effects of Shinra, you're like, I'm sold. I'm in on this story. Let's go kick some butt. Let's fix this problem.
Yeah, so I'm super curious, because Tim and we know a lot about Sephiroth. This game does not really explore his motivations. So I'm wondering how Sephiroth felt to you. Did he feel like a good villain in this game? Did the final fight seem really cool to have that with him, even though you didn't know too much about him?
Okay, so this is kind of a two-part thing. At the beginning of the game, whenever you're first introduced to him, he has that crazy quote where he's like saying something about your mother's going to watch you be slain and stuff like that. And it's just like horrific stuff. And I was like, at that point, I was like, okay, this is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in my first impressions video I was like, okay, I'm ready to fight this guy. Let's go get this guy. And then the game progressed and he wasn't there, except when Cloud had his little migraine moments and he would pop back up and then he wouldn't be there. And I was like, okay. So the guy that I thought was the bad guy is going to be the bad guy in this game. But then when you get to that final moment, I felt like I was kind of the outsider looking in, sort of. Like I kind of felt like, the kid who gets picked last at the basketball court. I was like, okay, I guess I'll just watch over here and I'll take it in for as much as I can, because I didn't understand the motive or because Cloud was like legitimately in that last fight, they were talking about he was kind of trying to end Destiny, or trying to put a swerve to Destiny. And like I was like, okay, so he must be really, really legit. And so I kind of just took it like it was being presented. And I appreciated that. But at the same time, I didn't know anything about why he was trying to put a stop to Destiny or change Destiny or anything like that.
Yeah, which I don't feel like you have to know everything. But do you think he was an effective villain for the game?
Well, okay, so I kind of don't think he was a villain in the game, in my opinion. The villain in the game, in my opinion, was the corporation. With Shinra.
I mean, they do play. They are a villain in the game, definitely.
Yeah,
Shinra. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't trying to be like, no, you're wrong. Yeah, Shinra is definitely a villain in the game.
Well, I think this is actually a pretty interesting point in of itself, because you and I, Vincent, know Sephiroth as a villain, as an agent of chaos and destruction. But Brandon brings up a good point: is that he's not like he's clearly in the remake, but he's not the antagonist, which is interesting. It's kind of like a Darth Vader moment.
Yeah, and I need to sort of revise something I said earlier, that nothing else was different except for the end. And that was a broad statement, but I need to reiterate, or I need to make sure that people know that Sephiroth being included in this first installment is actually new to the remake as well. Yeah. Or at least pretty much for like the most part, like pretty much any of the times that Sephiroth is talking to Cloud, all that stuff is added. That was not part of the original. And the whispers, everything to do with the whispers, was added in the remake and was not part of the original.
Wow.
Yes.
Yep.
That was, to me, the whisper thing, when that came to a head at the end, to me, once again, that was one of those moments where, in my opinion at least, that was whenever 5 years go by and I haven't played the game in 5 years, when I think about Final Fantasy VII, the remake, I'm going to think about how the whispers sort of were guiding things in a direction that it wanted to guide things in. And like, that was a huge moment to me, because that was more symbolic of a lot of just different areas that I wasn't expecting at all in sort of a...
So I'm about to blow your mind right now. What if I told you that the exact motive of the whispers was to keep Final Fantasy VII Remake to go exactly as the original game did? Every single thing that they are doing in the remake is trying to fix things to be exactly like the original Final Fantasy VII.
Oh.
Yeah, that's their motive. They're
yep.
So
yeah,
the story within a story.
Basically, the whispers are like, no, the way the story goes is like the original Final Fantasy VII, and that's exactly how it's going to be.
That is cool as hell.
Yes.
And they actually reveal it very early. If you catch it, I didn't. It was later when I was like, oh, that makes more sense, because in the original game, Barrett just offers to pay Cloud more money to go on that second mission. But in this new one, in the remake, he says, no, we don't need you. And so the whispers come out and hurt Jesse, and so Jesse can't go, and now he has to bring him along. So it's like early on in the game.
Right. And that was the moment where the people came looking for Barrett, right? The little group of ragtag, whatever, they came looking for Barrett. They said they were looking for a guy with a... Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So you would only know that if you had played the original game, that it was...
Yeah, you would never know if you were just playing the new one.
Okay.
The earliest sign of this that I can tell is that towards the beginning, after you blow up the reactor, I think is when this happens. Cloud has one of those visions, and you see a black feather from Sephiroth fall from his one wing.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother mind-blown thing that we'll get into in a little bit. But You see Sephiroth for the first time, and you start following him, and everything's on fire. You remember that moment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
as you follow him, it's the first time that you follow him, and the first time you meet him, and you have a little conversation with him, and then you run and jump and go to slash him. Well, then, right after you leave the alleyway is the first time you meet Aerith. But whenever you meet Aerith, she's trying to sway those whispers away from her, and you bump into her. Well, in the original game, you bump into her, but the thing is in this game you would not have bumped into her because of Sephiroth if it wasn't for the whispers keeping her there. The whispers were swinging around her so she could not move, so she would still bump into Cloud.
Oh,
the game is full of those moments. It is entirely done that way. Yeah, it is remarkable. Because
that is incredible.
If you go back and replay the game with this knowledge that we're going to be talking about, it gives you a whole new perspective.
I'll definitely have to do that. That's crazy. That's such good writing.
Yeah, no, it's great. But the reason why people, and because we might get some people watching this that are like, they're not bringing up why I hate this ending, why I'm so concerned. The reason why people are concerned is because this game, unlike the original, opens up, timelines and dimensions and past, present, and future, and there is a possibility that this game could divulge itself into being all these like Elseworld tales, and here's this guy who died who comes back to life, who's this girl, and so like death has no meaning anymore. Who cares if a character dies? They'll just come right back. And they think that it's them being too easy because they're not going to kill off major characters and things like that. But I think that's a very pessimistic view to have on it, and I think they partially have it because Kingdom Hearts has been doing that kind of stuff. And I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 3, so I can't speak to that, but I heard that some people had issues with that type of story with Kingdom Hearts 3. So Tim, do you agree with that?
I wasn't a fan of Kingdom Hearts 3 for many reasons, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, and so
not right now.
I believe one of the writers is one of the directors for the remake, so people are thinking like, oh man, they're going to Kingdom Hearts Final Fantasy VII, it was never meant to be this. But what I want to say to anyone listening that has that perspective is just to consider how amazing the first 95% of this game is, how well they knock out these characters, how well these character moments are. Everything about this game is super good. I mean, it seems like the real thing boils down to the ending for people, if they like or hate that. But since everything else is good, it seems like they really care about this game, they care about this world and the characters, that I hope that they can use that to feel more comfortable about where the direction will go. Because I personally don't think they're going to make it as crazy as people think they will. I think there's actually a lot of evidence that I personally think, and this is my personal theory, I have no idea, like I said, I have no idea what Tim thinks, but my personal feeling of this is this next game will actually follow a lot more in line with the next part of Final Fantasy VII, the original, than people think. I think a lot of the main beats will still be hit, but I think the difference is, and this is a big moment that I need to preface for Brandon, there's a main character that will die in this, that will die upcoming, and I need to just verify with you again that it's okay for me to, you might already know, it's probably the biggest video game death of all time.
Well, I might not know, but I did watch I don't remember who it was, but I watched a spoiler review on YouTube, and they were just throwing out spoilers for Final Fantasy VII. So
okay.
I'm kind of yeah, you're good.
Okay, just making sure, because Aerith, she dies in the original. It's a big deal, and Sephiroth kills her. It's of my personal belief that one of two things are going to happen. See, most people are concerned that this new storytelling about changing fate is a way to save her where she never dies. I think this ending is meant to make people believe that, because I think that this ending is made to give you hope because it's the first game. But then the second game, since Sephiroth will come into play as a bigger villain, I think he's pulling all the strings. And I think he wants Cloud and the team to have hope. I think he wants them to think that they can save Aerith. I think he wants them to think that they can save all these people. And I think ultimately it's still going to die. And it's like, well, that's a constant. Yeah. No matter what you do. Because what hurts more than losing someone you love? They're going to die, and there's nothing you can do to save them. I feel like that is a cool retelling of the story in a way that can hit hard like it did when it first came out. Because if they just retold everything the exact same way, it's not going to have the same effect it did then, because we already know what's going to happen.
Yep.
So
100%. I actually, to add to that, this is a little bit off topic. And by the way, in that review, the dude said, when I was watching the remake spoiler review, he said that Aerith died in the original. So you're good, yeah.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil 2 remake. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite game of all time.
Okay.
Well, it's the first game I ever played as a kid. I was like 5 years old and played it and loved it. Yeah, I was already warped at 5 years old.
Nice.
But whenever the 2019 game, or was it 2019? Yeah, 2019 Resident Evil 2 remake came out, I was like, what the heck is this? This is not the game I played. And when in 1998 or whatever year I ended up playing it, I was like, this is so much different. And then whenever I saw a lot of fans saying the same thing about the Final Fantasy VII remake, I kind of related in that area where I was like, I can understand what you guys are complaining about, but you do, like you said, you have to look at it as this is a evolution of something that you can't put the same game out. If you put the same game out, people are going to be pissed.
And I'll say,
I don't want to play multiple games of a remake. I think it would be way too much time.
And I'll say this too. When it comes to me being optimistic or pessimistic, I'll say that, because someone might think I'm hypocritical if they ever see me pessimistic, because I do get pessimistic sometimes. But I personally judge it on case-by-case basis. I look at the past work that they've done, which I think people are doing in this case, but they're looking at Kingdom Hearts 3 instead of the rest of the remake.
Which is not the place to look.
Yeah, they need to look at the rest of the remake. The rest of this remake is fantastic, and because the rest of this remake is so well done, like, I've seen so many comments of people saying, man, this game was a 10 out of 10 until the last hour, and then it just dropped it. And I'm thinking, like, that is the way I'm, like, yeah, look at this game. If it's been a 10 out of 10 this whole time, then expect it to continue to at least hit close to that mark. That's my personal take on it. But I've talked a lot. So Tim, go ahead. I'm passing it over to you. Talk about the ending, whatever you want to talk about with it.
Well, I got to go back to Aerith because I'm still traumatized from the first time that it happened. I do fully believe. I think you're exactly right, and I have two reasons to believe that. First is like the storytelling motif of like, how do you bring heroes to their ultimate low? Is let them get high first. And then you bring them crashing down. So you're right. I think Sephiroth is letting them believe that they can change fate. Because even in this one, he says, "Let's change fate together." Right? Come do it with me. Because he's been doing it for multiple games. I mean, they set it up across. Like you wouldn't learn this from any one game, but Sephiroth has jumped dimensions and timelines to make history go the way he wants it to. And so I think he's definitely a puppet master here as well, and wants to bring Cloud, like Joker to Batman, bring him all the way down to his lowest low so that he can really wrap him in. And when you're picking flowers with he has a vision, Cloud has a vision, and he says, "Hey, do you know Sephiroth?" And she's like, "Yeah, the war hero, but he died, right?" And he says, "No, I think he's still alive." And it does the lower part of her face, and she says, "Oh, well," and then goes on. And that's such a way. It's like, like, I think she has seen because of her connection to the Whispers, and like, so I think it wants us to believe that we might be able to save her, because even in the original game there's this rumor of an Easter egg where you could revive her, and it's not true. You can't save her. And so I think it wants us to lead us down that same rabbit hole of saying, well, you could save her, sure, you can do it.
And I think, if I was to be a betting man, I would bet that she's going to die whenever that time comes. If I had a second bet, though, I do think there is a possibility that, more so than her being saved, I do think there's a slightly increased chance that they may give you the chance to save Aerith, but it's going to have Tifa die or someone else die.
Cost someone.
Yes, I feel like there's no way that's so. I feel like there's going to be a major death, no matter how you look at it. I just think it's probably going to still be Aerith because logistically, from a game design perspective, having it be like Aerith or Tifa, and then to have to build the rest of the game where you can interchange each of those in the cutscenes would be like hell for game development. So from like a game design, like technical level, I don't see that happening. But from like a story perspective, I could see like okay, sure, like if they killed, if they had it where it's like you have 7 seconds to make a choice and you have to run and save Tifa or Aerith,
Right.
similar to the Batman reference again, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
man, especially if they have whoever you go after to save is the one that gets killed, that'd be insane.
Really go Batman with
Yeah,
it?
yeah, but yeah, that's just the way I see it's going to happen. And for you, Brandon, a lot of this world has things to do with like the life stream. Sort of like whenever like a living creature dies, it becomes kind of one with the world, one with part of this life stream. And Aerith has a connection to that since she's an ancient. And in this game, unlike the original, like she starts off the same character as the original game, but as she goes throughout the game, her dialogue and her demeanor sometimes changes, and it's because the whispers are allowing her to see into the future. Basically, she's able to start seeing what's going to happen. And so at the and a good reference for this is when she first meets Cloud. She's like, "Oh, people are coming after you. No, you're gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about it. I promise, no one's coming after you." She has no idea. She's very like naive and innocent in that moment, and people immediately attack them right after. But later on, when Tifa mentions like, "Hey, will you go get Marlene?" She mentions Marlene before Tifa finishes, and she has never met Marlene. She doesn't know who Marlene is. She's like, "I'm gonna go do this," and then when Marlene cries and says, "Hey, am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose the bar? You know, we're going to lose all this stuff." Aerith doesn't stick with the same way of speaking as she did with Cloud, where she says, "Oh, you won't be attacked. This won't happen." She knows that bar is getting destroyed. She knows all that stuff's getting destroyed. So she looks at her and she says, "You'll be okay. Your dad's going to be okay. You can rebuild together," because she knows in the future that's what's going to happen.
Oh my
Yes.
God. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, if you put it that way, that makes complete sense because at the end of the game, she started almost speaking like an old woman. Did y'all catch that? Like it almost sounded like her demeanor was an older woman. And it was out of nowhere. Like she had all this wisdom. And throughout the whole game, she was like naive and sort of oblivious. And then at the end of the game, she's like spouting off all this wisdom. And I was like, where is this coming from? But now that you say that, she actually was progressively building to that end of the game where she was more, I guess, with all of that, she had all that knowledge. Yeah, exactly.
And basically, the way to look at it is in the original. Like I said, I don't remember minor details. I'm pretty sure in the original, there's nothing that mentions Sephiroth time traveling or anything like that, right?
No, that wasn't established until after 13.
Okay, cool. So that's what I thought. But one clear sign that Sephiroth is time traveling in some capacity is as actually his one wing, the wing that he has. He doesn't have that until Advent Children, which is a movie that comes out after the events of Final Fantasy VII, and you see the black feather as the first indication of Sephiroth in this original game, and he has it in the original game. So this is clearly not the same Sephiroth. And what's crazy is I heard that like the director or the writer or someone behind Final Fantasy VII, when they first released the key art for the remake years ago, all the key art was Cloud and Sephiroth with the black wing, and they made a statement saying, "Hey, there's actually a clue hidden in here about the story, about a very pivotal moment in the story. Try to figure it out." No one figured it out, but what it was clearly.
What if it's just that the wing?
Yeah, it was just the wing that was there, and people are like, "Oh, that's just there to look cool." But it wasn't like, "Oh, well, he's gonna come back through time and change up all this." And what I think is so fascinating is he plays a great antithesis to Aerith, because like Aerith is like the light side, you know, she's like the good in the world, and then Sephiroth is this like darkness, and Sephiroth is the first one to come in there. And because of him, he's kind of like a virus in this world. He's an anomaly. He doesn't belong. That's why the Whispers are in there. And that's why the Whispers aren't in the original game. In the original game, they're not needed because Sephiroth, the future Sephiroth, isn't there. So there's no reason.
Isn't tampering.
Yeah, things are just going to play out the way they're meant to. But because Sephiroth is manipulating everything, nothing is playing out the way it's meant to. So the Whispers are trying to force it to correct itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a whole different way of looking at all that. See, like I told you, you know, I had some questions wrote down, and I think you've answered like 3 out of my 8 within the
actually, it's a good point. That's a good point. Let's start knocking out your questions.
Okay, well, just to kind of let your viewers know, like I said, I've never played the games before, so I wrote down some questions for these guys because they've played the games, and these are things I just have no clue about. So I wanted to ask these guys to get their opinion on stuff. So my first question was, what exactly were the floaty things? You know, and you answered that completely. Um, I okay. So this is a big one. The second question I had was, is the ending sort of like showing an alternate universe? Like, is that what that is? Like the guy with the black hair, I don't know who he is. Is he like another version of Cloud?
You're talking about Zach?
Okay, yeah. Well, they don't mention his name.
Oh,
They don't mention his name. Yeah,
oh,
yeah. So this,
that's
so
right.
Tim.
Crisis Core.
Yeah, Tim. I'll let you handle this real quick. I want to say that I did find it strange in this game that for a newcomer, everything in this game is easy to understand as far as like to jump on board as a newcomer and to like understand the story and get to know the characters. But Zach's moment in particular is completely baffling for anyone who does not know who that character is.
Yep.
Yeah. But go ahead, Tim. Go ahead and explain that scene as best as you can.
I don't even know how to like, because like this gets to the point of like potentially spoiling the next game, because like there's going to be things that you learn about Cloud that you know, like, are you okay learning something that
yeah. Whenever I watched that review, like I said, the dude spoiled a lot of
maximum
stuff.
spoilers for anything with the word Final Fantasy VII in it.
All right, let's do
the
it.
Title.
So Cloud was never a soldier. Just right there. Cloud was never a soldier.
And Hojo hints at that. Hojo looks at Cloud and he says, "Oh, you're not." And then like the whispers like take him away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says something like "not exactly" or something, right? He looks in his eyes and Cloud was like, "I used to be a soldier" or whatever. He said, "Not exactly," something to that effect, right?
Yeah. There's also God, what is the Turk's name? Is it Nero? I keep wanting to call him Nero, the guy who attacks in the church.
It's Reno.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, soldier, what class?" And he says, Cloud says, "First." And Reno responds with, "Come on, if you're going to tell me bullshit, at least make it believable." Right. And so you know, it's kind of like thrown out there. So Cloud was never a soldier. He wanted to be, but he never got there. He does have a role model named Zach Fair, who is a badass, and that's who I got to see going in with Crisis Core. And you know, that's where he was not the original, but one of the wielders of the Buster Sword, and then eventually hands it off to Cloud. And he dies in the accident. They keep talking about an accident from 5 years before. Well, Cloud and Tifa are both present for that. And Cloud can't handle, between the Mako poisoning that he suffers and see people die and everything go to hell, he has a mental break, and so replaces his own memories with Zach's, and then becomes the Cloud that you see in 7.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
So what you were seeing in that alternate timeline is the predecessor to Cloud being a badass, and you do get to see him succeed against Shinra in this alternate.
Yeah, and at the end he's like, "Wow, I survived that." Like he has like shock on his face, and what's crazy, because he's not supposed to survive that. Fate has him die there. Like in the end of Crisis Core, basically he has Cloud posted up on the side, kind of like hidden from everyone else, and he's like knocked unconscious, and then Zack is fighting off as many people as he can until he gets shot down and dies. And then I believe Cloud wakes up and then sees his friend dying, and he doesn't want his friend to die, and he's crying, and Zack's like, "You'll be my legacy, like live on for me," and then hands him the sword. And then Cloud has to walk back into the city with his sword and crying.
Okay, that makes sense. So that whenever I saw the sword, that was when I was like, okay, so is this guy just the black hair version of this?
Dark Cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he looks very familiar.
A good game, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, I will say, as a gut reaction, I felt very. That was one of the things I felt a little mixed on, because I like Zack a lot, but I was like thinking like, man, it does feel like it could muddy up the story to have like this alternate timeline and have him alive, and how are they gonna weave that together? But like I said, I'm optimistic because they did such a good job with all the writing that I'm on board for it, you know.
Yeah, and I'm interested because of the character turmoil that can come from that. Because, like I said, Cloud becomes who he is as a attempted image of Zack because of trauma, and in this alternate timeline, that trauma no longer exists. So, do you still have the Cloud that we've now spent 40 some hours with? Like what's going to happen there? So, like these alternate timelines, I really feel like they do muddy up the story and you could cause potential problems. But I think it also frees the team to really explore these characters more in depth. That we kind of get in a way that the original just had no option to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Okay.
So I have my faith in it, and I'm super excited. How long do you think it's going to be until we see the next installment for this game?
2 years.
2 years?
I think it'll be 2 years.
I think it's kind of crazy saying that, but I kind of have that gut feeling. Like I'm kind of thinking 2 years. Like they already announced that they're working
Right?
on it. Like Square Enix has a bad history of taking a long time with games, but they there's actually some signs pointing to the fact that they actually did this in 2 years. They announced it much longer ago, but it was a different company working on it, and they didn't like what the other company was doing, so they scrapped everything the other company had. They redid it. They had some other fallouts and different things messing up, and they still managed to push it out. So I think that this may come sooner than later, like a lot of people think.
Yeah, so I didn't even know about them switching companies.
So they switched companies like halfway through because they were actually outsourcing it originally to a third party company, and I think what it was is the third party company was doing a good job, but they weren't. They said this isn't quite what we want because we know the standard that everyone expects this to be. So even though this company's doing a good job, we can't just like shovel out a game unless it's like our best of the best. And I think
It has to be perfect.
and I think it shows. Like I think you can tell that they tried to make this game perfect. Even like we said, there might be like little nitpicks here and there. Like I think it's evident that they tried very, very hard on this game.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the big takeaway that I had as well. It like as much as I kind of at times didn't understand exactly what was going on, there's no denying the just overall polish, almost flawed, minor nitpicking points.
Yeah. So what's some other questions you have?
All right. Here's a completely kind of crazy one.
I like it.
Who's like Marlene's mom and dad?
I believe she's supposed to be an orphan, and Barrett has adopted her, but I don't actually know.
I don't have a definitive answer for that either.
Was it your assumption, Tim, that she's adopted?
She kind of just seemed like part of it was like an adoptee of Avalanche. Like it didn't seem like she was any one true person. Like Barrett has the tightest connection, but he also treats everyone there like his kids. So like it's really hard. It was hard to tell from there.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think she's definitely an orphan.
Yeah, and I mean my main reason for thinking that I think is in Advent Children they show a ton of orphans, and
Yes.
orphans play a bigger role in that. I don't have to spoil some of this. I'm not going to. But there's like some characters that adopt children and stuff from the original crew, and Marlene hangs out with those kids. So like I just associate her with being an orphan, but. If she's not an orphan and you're watching this and you know the full details about Marlene, be sure to drop them in the comments. I'll read them.
Let us know.
Yeah, because but either way, I still consider Barrett like her father because I feel like he's definitely like her father as far as like how he takes care of her, how he cares, and everything like that. So,
right,
yeah, which is great moments for Barrett.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. But the main reason I asked that was because I was under the impression that Tifa was the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, whenever I saw Cloud kind of getting a little intimate with Tifa, I was like, Barrett is gonna whoop your ass.
Barrett's gonna kill him.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've heard some other people thought that for the original game. I haven't seen too many new play this game. I've seen mostly people play this game who have already seen the original, so they already knew that wasn't the case. But yeah, I think that's understandable to think that just because it's not really clear like who Marlene's parents are and stuff like that.
Well, and we're not trained. We're trained to assume that there are biological parents too, right? Just societally, like if we see a kid and somebody else, you assume that that's their bio parent, not adopted. So it would make sense. And because she doesn't look much like Barrett, but she does kind of look a little like Tifa, it would be easy to jump to that.
Exactly. The next question I had down here, you guys already answered. Why is Cloud no longer a soldier? The answer being that he's not a
Never
soldier
was.
and he never was. So, okay, this one I don't know if you necessarily even want to answer because I don't know where this like ties into what spoilers. I don't know if it's spoilers for Final Fantasy 38 or just spoilers
Right.
for Final Fantasy 7. Which characters are we 100% sure died
In the original game?
in the remake, in the game that
Gotcha.
the remake game?
Mm,
Because we saw at the at the big climax at the end of the game, we saw uh, uh the dude with the bandana. What was his name?
Biggs,
Biggs.
yeah. Biggs
yeah.
is the
Biggs, yeah.
skinnier one.
Yeah, he's dead, right?
Okay, so I should say this too. Tim and I, we're not seers. We can't see into the future. A lot of this like from the future stuff, and a lot of this is theories, but they're like heavily supported. The games could go in any direction, and especially when it comes to this. This is probably the most murky territory as far as like us not having a definitive answer. I personally think that Biggs is alive. I think actually there's going to be a shocking moment in the next game where you're going to go to the Golden Saucer where Jessie referenced that she has been an actress for and she's trying to be the lead actress. I think you're going to go there, watch a play, see her as the lead actress, and then when you talk to her, she's not going to know who you are because there's going to be these alternate timeline stuff going on. And I think as you start correcting things and as like the game will mostly be beat by beat the same thing, but you're going to notice characters that had died won't know who you are, but they're kind of living a happier life. But as they live happier lives, messing up like other people's lives, and it's leading to other people dying. And I think ultimately the decision that will be made is Jessie has to be dead and stay dead. They're going to have to kill Jessie again. They're going to have to kill Biggs again. They're going to have to kill Wedge again. They're going to have to kill Aerith. They're going to have to kill off all these characters to fix things. That's the way that I'm thinking it's going to go. And I think if this ends up being a 3-part game series, it makes the most sense to have the characters at their lowest for the second game. So I really expect them to get nailed and hit real hard because this is going to be the climax. This is where, shit hits the fan. People are dying. This is where we just now had like a cool arc and we have the hope. And then this next game is going to be like, oh, things look great. And then just boom. And then,
plummet.
And then the final game, it'll be returning to some hope and beating the bad guy and having victory at the end of the day. That's the way I see it playing out.
So,
I agree.
I appreciate it, Tim.
Yeah.
When you say they are gonna have to kill these characters, you don't mean like Cloud and Avalanche, do you? You mean like five?
I don't mean directly kill. I don't mean that you'll see Cloud like saying like, "Hey Jesse, I'm sorry," and stab her with a Buster Sword. I'm saying that they will probably be forced by Sephiroth to make decisions where he's like, hey, because even in the end of this game, he says, you have 7 seconds. I wonder what you'll do with that. In the original game, when he kills Aerith, he kills her in 7 seconds. So I think Sephiroth is going to give Cloud some sort of ultimatum, and whether that's a player choice or that's just a cutscene, I think that choice will lead to multiple people dying.
Dude, that would be so freaking cool if it was a player choice and we had to make some horrible decision and live with it, like Mass Effect style.
Well, like I said, I only question it from the game, like writing the game and all, like the technical side of things. But story perspective, that'd be cool.
Well, and there is pretty significant potential for that. Like obviously, building the attachment to these characters, like they do, especially with the addition of Chapter 4, where you go to her parents' house, that does make their death / maybe not death at the end hurt more. But I mean, it would also make that decision way worse because, if you took their screen time from the first game, you said, okay, choose between these 3 people who now live happy lives or Aerith. Everyone's going to say save Aerith.
Yes, that is true.
But if now, if they make it like, hey, these people that you love and learned to really function with in a group, you have to sacrifice them to save one, that's a harder choice.
Yeah,
so I could definitely see them doing that.
Which imagine this. Sephiroth has an ultimatum for Cloud. He has to have all these other people die again to save Aerith. and then he chooses to save Aerith, damning all the other people who came back to life, and then Sephiroth still kills Aerith.
Yeah,
like
it's very Sephiroth-like.
Yeah, like Sephiroth has no moral quandaries with destroying Cloud any way he can. So I'm fully expecting something like that.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so in Final Fantasy VII, the original game, is there that sort of thing where you have to pick between people that live and die? Like you have to go and do something, or does
No.
everybody die, or does nobody die?
So the main death in 7 is Aerith. I mean, well, let me say this. Team Avalanche, Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse, when you go up that tower in the remake and you see Jesse is dead and you see Biggs is dead, get out alive and he survived, they all three die at that moment in the original.
Oh, okay.
And you'll actually notice when the tower is falling, you notice that Wedge is trying to escape, but the Whispers are circling around him, not letting him escape. He still manages to somehow survive, and then he shows up at the Shinra, the headquarters place, and he's trying to help the team, and he's like, I got to do something, I gotta help them. And he's trying to run, and the Whispers are bringing them back, and then it cuts to black, and you hear a window as if he was thrown out the window and died, which I believe is what happened. I think it's because
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's like he's not allowed to live. Like he died in the original. The Whispers are going to make sure this guy's dead. Like that's the whole thing. But in the original game, those three characters didn't really have much weight. Like it was like, oh yeah, this is sad, but you didn't really care that much for him. Aerith was the one that was the big deal. Like Aerith was like, oh my god, I cannot believe that she died. I feel heartbroken. I'm sad by this.
Wow.
She's the crux of it, and it changes the dynamic. Like it changes how Cloud feels. You see that he's been opening up to Aerith in this game. Like because Cloud at first in this game, he's like kind of this hard ass. He's edgy. He doesn't care about anybody. But as he spends some time with Jessie, she kind of butters him up a little bit. Tifa kind of butters him up a little bit. But Aerith is the one that really brings them out. So to lose Aerith is like a huge character moment for Cloud.
Yeah, without a doubt. That was something I noticed too, and that was actually a question I had. If you want to jump into that, I said, is Cloud into Aerith more or Tifa more? And because exactly what you said, I was thinking that Aerith was like really the one that was getting into Cloud's psyche a little bit and sort of kind of balancing him out a little bit. But like the backstory with Tifa seemed to be very, very important to Cloud. So do y'all have any sort of insight into like, is one or the other more important to Cloud? Is it the backstory with Tifa or is it the new stuff with Aerith?
Dude, I really wish it were that simple. Unfortunately, due to Cloud's connection to Zack, it gets way more complicated.
True.
Because Zack also had a connection with Aerith. And since Cloud has his memories, it's hard to tell. Is Cloud actually into Aerith? Is it just Zack coming through him? Like, it's very hard to tell. You're right, and you're right, because, it's kind of almost, I don't know how much anime you watch, but there's like some kind of trope harem with like the childhood friend, best girl, and the crazy one being Jessie.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, but so it inclines me to think that he's more into Aerith based off of those tropes. But it's hard to tell, man, and especially with that connection to Zack, it gets very, very weird.
I think how most people feel is I think most people think like they feel bad for Cloud because it seems like Cloud's pretty into Aerith, and when he loses her, that's a big moment. And as fans, we know that Tifa's still there for him, and there is definitely a connection with him and Tifa. But it's always kind of that thing for fans, like, all right, come on, Cloud and Tifa, come on, Cloud and Tifa. Or a lot of fans feel that, but I mean, it's tough. Like at the very least, they still have a bond, whether that's friends or something more.
Yeah.
So the spoiler thing that I watched, the guy said that black hair Zach's black hair guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. He said that Zach and Aerith were together in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yep.
So Cloud and Zach and Cloud are like buddies, right? Is that what y'all were saying?
Yeah.
So does that come to a head at some point?
No. So the only thing that even kind of remotely addresses that, there is a novel that I know of. I have not actually read it, but it takes place after Aerith's death, where Aerith enters the life stream and comes into contact with Zack's soul. And it's a very, touching moment where, and then they kind of talk about how they can help keep the path where it needs to be, because the live stream is always affecting things. And you see them interact there after they've both died, but it doesn't ever really like come to a head with that. No, because if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think we as the players or Cloud ever realized the connection to Zack until long after Aerith's death.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that, Vincent?
You are, and they kind of show that in Advent Children, which I'm not sure if you've watched that movie before.
Yeah.
But yeah, they show Aerith and Zack together, but not together in like a relationship sort of way. But yeah, it's really hard to tell. I mean, really, we won't. I think we'll get a better understanding after we finish these games. I think they'll kind of have a clear message on that.
Yeah, you should go watch the cutscenes of Zack and Aerith from Crisis Core. I mean, it's not nearly as pretty as the remake, but Crisis Core does have some very interesting story parallels that set up between him and Cloud, that you may be interested to see before we, see what happens in the next game.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, any more questions you got? I think these have been pretty fun. So.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll actually read you. I think you guys answered every single question within that first window of our recording. My first question was the floating things, and the next one was the ending. Was it an alternate universe? The next one was and then who is Marlene? Why is Cloud no longer a soldier? Which characters is Cloud into Aerith or Tifa more? And then my last question was just as a newcomer, I think something that people who are going to want to pick up the game might need to know some combat tips, because whenever I jumped into the game for the first time, I was just spamming square. I was just doing square nonstop, and I was getting
wrecked. Yeah, you'll definitely you can't do that in this game.
No. So yeah, I was just wondering if you guys might have any sort of combat tips for people, if there's anybody out there watching this that is about to jump into it for the first time.
So let me mention something that's kind of more on the kind of more story aspects real quick, and then after that we'll dive right into combat. We'll talk about gameplay, combat, all that stuff. So I keep thinking of all this extra stuff. So Leslie and his whole arc, like that whole character, and Roche, however you pronounce his name, they are both. They are both also completely new to this game. And some people who played the original were wondering, why are these characters added? Roche is too, silly and over the top, which I actually think that it was a good plant to have there for what happens in Wall Market with some of the crazy, silly stuff. I think having some of that silliness in Final Fantasy, it already has that with the Toneberry and the Chocobos and all this other stuff. So I think it actually kind of helped add some of that more to the beginning. That way it felt more like it's part of the whole story and not just in some of these weird sections. But anyways, I actually think the reason why they took the time to show those two new characters off, as well as Jessie and her backstory and all this other stuff, is because when we get into the next game, you might see that this timeline might be better for Jessie, but Leslie finds his fiance and they get married. Or he might have to give up his life for this to happen. It planted seeds for things to happen in the future game. As far as Roche goes, for soldiers, they have the this kind of poisoning effect where they get more powerful, where they kind of become they become superhuman. They become so powerful, but they reach a peak and then it starts declining and increasing. Yeah, and I think what would be a great story arc for him, and I heard this from someone else, so this isn't my original. But I loved it, which was the idea that when you keep fighting him as your rival, you'll eventually notice that there's going to be a point where he looks weaker and he looks like he can't stand on his own 2 feet as well. And you start noticing that he's already hit his prime, he's already hit his peak. And as he's battling you, he gets to the point where he's no longer this bombastic, crazy man, but he's he's just dying, and it's sad. It just shows you how horrible this situation can be for soldiers and some of the bad effects that come with that. So I just wanted to touch on that before we jump into the combat section. But now, I think we've definitely dived real deep into the story stuff, especially the ending. So we'll pack all that up and we'll push it aside. And now we get to talk about how much we love the combat, some combat tips for people. Even though I'm not sure who would dive into this like massive spoiler video
and then want to see the gameplay after.
Yeah. Well, if they're struggling to get through the game, like combat wise, then I'm not sure if they're going to make it this point. But either way, I was curious because I've watched some streamers play this, and they use some different materia than I used. They set up the characters differently than I did, and they tend to prioritize different abilities than I did. So I'm curious what sort of like loadouts you guys had, and why did you find those working for you?
Brand, do you want to start?
You go ahead, man.
It sounds like
y'all are gonna be.
It sounds like Brandon. It sounds like Brandon like kind of stumbled through the ending, like stumbled through the game.
Oh, y'all are gonna be so mad at me. I'll let y'all go, and then you're gonna be like, dude, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm already excited. So for me, the one thing that I always have to remind myself going into a Final Fantasy game, because I don't do this in any other game, is to be willing to just burn through items. Now this of course is corrected. I don't know if you guys have played hard mode at all yet, where it doesn't let you use them, which is fine. But like JRPGs, like I'm so trained with like Skyrim, the Fallout RPG, Western RPGs, not to use healing items all the time. Whereas stuff like Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy mana, it's like, no, you have these items, frickin' use them. And so that's always a learning curve for me again. So that's my initial tip. Vincent, I'm actually kind of embarrassed by my loadouts as well, so I kind of want to hear yours first, and then we can just like go downhill.
Yeah, so watching people play this game has been fascinating because I've seen some people struggle really badly, and the one person who I've seen who's just been doing great is this guy named Maximilian Dude, and he is like a hardcore gamer, and he loves Final Fantasy VII. He's been killing it, so he hasn't had any issues, but a lot of other people I've been watching, they've been really for me, I don't know what it is. I intuitively picked up with the system very well. It's unlike anything really I've ever played, but I love it. It's the perfect combination of like cinematic action, but it's not mindless. Like that's my biggest problem with like hack and slash games. A lot of times I just feel like I'm spamming the same button, and that's not like fulfilling for me. But to have the amazing visuals and the cinematics that this game has, and to have it where instead of pausing, it slows down, so you see the sword coming around, and you see Tifa flipping through the air, to see all the particle effects, like it's amazing. I love that strategy element that's implemented. But to get to the question, I actually think the way I played set me up pretty well for hard mode because I only used the potions and stuff mostly outside of combat. I actually, during combat, I got used to using cure a lot, and I leveled up my cures like through combat, and so like I would have cure on 2 out of 3 of the characters, and it was all the way leveled up, so I was good to go with that. I also had revive on the character, which was amazing to have. I think at times I even had 2 revives on 2 different characters. And I also use chakra. Like I like chakra a lot. I heard some people say it was really terrible, and I also heard people say you have to use chakra when you play hard mode because you can't use items and chakra is necessary. Right. Chakra is really solid because it not only heals you and it heals you more the lower your health is, but it also cures your status effects. So and it counts as an ability. It doesn't count as an item. So it doesn't use MP at all. So it's just like it's a great go-to. So that was my main tips. I did catch myself messing up not having every element on hand, which I think is very important. Oh, yeah. You need someone in your party that has fire, someone that has ice, someone that has lightning, and I kept messing up for some reason. I never had someone that had wind, so anytime something was weak to wind, I was just like, darn it, why do I keep forgetting to put wind on something?
You always forget about... Well, so the early game kind of trains you badly for that too, because I noticed the first like 9 or 10 enemy types were all weak. My friend and I started joking. It's like, oh, if it has flesh, it's weak to fire, because it was everything. And so I had fire and I had ice. I had fire, ice, and lightning, and never wind. I never had wind. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh wait, I can't hit this thing now.
It's a struggle. So you definitely need all of those. And maybe even more of a struggle than that for me was I constantly wanted to have like assess. I constantly wanted to have that. I constantly wanted to have like enemy skill or like some of these extra things that you have to have on your character to use them, but they don't normally help your character at all. Or like steal is another one. Like there's not many things to steal in the game that's worth it.
Right.
But you don't want to be stuck in a battle where you're like, oh wait, he has this rare item to steal. I have no one with steal though, so I can't steal it. So that was something I was struggling with. I think that the next game actually should make it where assess should be an ability that you can do without having to waste a materia slot. I can understand.
That would be really
Yeah,
nice.
I can understand if they wanted to keep enemy skill and steal as materia slots. I think that's fine. But I think assess is so integral where you always want a character to have that, and it just feels like an ability anyways. Like that, I don't know. It just seems like you could have that be its own thing. So hopefully they'll do that. Let's see. Yeah.
I can tell you something that you're gonna love this.
All right, go ahead.
So, about 2 hours, more than 2 hours, probably 4 hours into the game, I learned a great ability, a fantastic ability, and that was that R1 is the block.
Oh yeah.
I was 4 hours into this game without blocking. I was dodging everything and getting destroyed. I was getting beat by the dogs in the back street. I was getting beat by everything, dude. It was bad.
Dude, I was the opposite. I could not resist, and I ended up playing the demo when the demo came out. And when I played that whole demo, the whole first level, I did not know that you could dodge roll in battle. I don't know how I missed it, but I did no dodge rolling.
It's fair. See, I actually had a problem with the dodge roll, not like with the mechanic, but because I just played Bloodborne again, and really like that's just dodge roll all the time, and so I was like, why block for the first little bit? I'll just dodge roll, and it's really hard to dodge in this game. There's so many attacks that are like, no, you should be blocking. So I did have to retrain, but I can't. That's awesome that you just didn't know that it was the thing.
Yeah, what's cool about the blocking and dodging is there are definitely certain attacks that are better for the other option. Like when something goes to like do that like charge at you, like it's better to just jump out the way, kind of thing. Like there's definitely, but there's some attacks that will just hone in on you and just get you no matter what. So you just need to sit there and block it. So I like having that mix up there.
Tell me if you think this is a fair assessment. Anything that's much bigger than you, dodge. Anything that's your size or smaller, block. Would that be a kind of fair,
I would say mostly. I'd say that if you had to like simplify it, I would say like off the top of my head that seems pretty accurate. Well, I will say the ghost, like the phantom thing that will disappear and then it reappears and does the ice claw. Way better to jump out of the way on that one.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple of different areas, but what did you guys think? I don't know anything about the original, obviously. Is whenever you do the summoning, is that in the original, or how did that even look in the original with those big, beast devil things popping up? Was that
it's in the original? Actually, it's so much in the original that I believe it goes all the way back to Final Fantasy 1. Well, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like summons are a staple for the Final Fantasy franchise. Basically, anytime a new Final Fantasy comes out, everyone's like, what's the summons? I want to see the summons. What's the cutscenes for it? In the original Final Fantasy VII, whenever you summoned them, they didn't fight alongside you. Instead, they would do their big ultimate power attack, and then they would leave. But you didn't have a gauge that would fill up. You could just, you could basically just spam them. You could say, all right, you're summoning, Odin, you're summoning Ifrit, you're summoning Moogle, you're summoning that, and you could just kind of spam it with your action abilities. Okay. Which with this game, that would be broken if you could just sit there and spam it.
Yes.
Right.
So that is to say, I mean, they were there, but it is way more satisfying now. It feels really good, especially like my favorite thing, and because it's like, the spirit may stir when you're in a hard battle. The best thing to me is when it doesn't start at the beginning.
Yeah.
The bar starts charging like halfway through because you're just sitting there like less than 1,000 health, blocking, hoping your ATB charge will will fill up.
Yes.
And that you like look over and that summon bar pops up. You're like, oh my god, I'm saved.
Dude,
thank you,
Ifrit. Dude, I had a moment the other day. I was playing. I was struggling. I was dying. I thought I was going to lose. and like I was below 1,000 health or whatever, and my ATB gauge I was waiting to go up, and then the summoning started appearing. I'm like, gotta hold out, gotta hold out, gotta hold out.
It just
yes.
Feels like a superhero coming to save you. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
100%.
But since we're on the topic of summons, a little nitpick here is, and this is very, very small of a nitpick, like so very small. I find it a little odd that to get some of these summons who are like these godlike deities that you need to beat them in a VR battle. I feel like it's a little preferred to go on a little quest. You go out and go to this like crystal lake, and then something's going on with Shiva or something, and it just seems a little weird for the VR battle, but the game's so good that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it's because the last time I remember seeing that is with 13, is when they started doing that. It's like, these gods may appear to you, but if you can't beat them, they're not going to listen to you. Which I think is, and then with 7, it's suddenly this VR battle, and it does kind of take from their power a little bit, because it almost makes it feel like more technology based.
Yeah, it's like it's like how did they get captured in this VR system, and how does that make them into materia made? I know it's all magic and stuff, so it's whatever. But I feel like it could have been like Final Fantasy 15 does a really good job. Have you played 15, by the way, Tim?
I've played the first half of it. I have not.
Did you play to where you saw like the first encounter with the astrals or whatever the summons are called? Okay,
yes. Yes, I did.
I understand that's a major part of the game, so I understand why they didn't do that in 7. But like the way that 15 handles the summons, as far as like obtaining them, I think has been the best that Final Fantasy's done.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say about 7, because actually, and this is something that is developing as I say it, so bear with me here. But I actually, now that I'm thinking of it as being more technology based, it does kind of fit with this dystopia that they've set up of like, the gods aren't here anymore, right? It's like, Ifrit, Shiva, Odin, like they're not, like in a lot of the Final Fantasy games, you have this like super magical world that you get to see, and the life stream is intact, and there's these giant beasts wandering around. And now, of course, that can and will change, but in Midgar, that's not the case. Humans have changed everything to fit their own needs. So I think like maybe it would be kind of weird to suddenly have Shiva pop up on a crystalline lake.
Yeah, no, I can see that. It'd be cool if they mention like, hey, this is like basically all we have left of Shiva is a fragment of her. Like this is like the fragment version of her, and it's like, wow, she's powerful, and this is just a portion of what's left of her.
No, this is a bit.
This is just a bit of what's left of her. Yeah, cool. But I agree with. I mean, and the game does a good job whenever you go to the Shinra headquarters and you see like what the world looked like beforehand, before Shinra started building everything. It was that beautiful fantasy world, and you see how much has changed. So I definitely agree, and I think that's a fascinating angle to have on it.
Yeah, this is kind of back to story just a little bit, but I do kind of want your opinion on where do you do you think that Shinra are the only bad guys, or do you think that Avalanche is kind of guilty of doing some not so great stuff too? Like that was something that was like kind of a moral dilemma in my head as I was going into these like, big moments. I was like, man, am I doing the right thing? Is this mission pursuit? Is it pure? Is there something else tangled in with it? Like I didn't really understand that a whole lot. Like I loved that I didn't understand it. That's the best part of it.
I think you're definitely supposed to feel that way. I think you're supposed to see both ends of it. I mean, even with Shinra, even though they're the bad guys, the game also shows moments where they're just some of them are just employees. They're just trying to like make. Some of them have been told like that they are the good guys, and they believe that, and they're like, "Who are these terrorists that's messing everything up?" The game does a really good job of like having tons of like gray strokes everywhere. My personal take on it is I think that the core Avalanche group is mostly good. I mean, like there's always good and evil is a weird defining term because they are doing things that put innocent lives in danger. But causing the catastrophe that had happened wasn't all they're doing. Like Jessie made sure, like she was very precise, and she's a good expert when it comes to demolitions. She knew that the way that reactor did not respond the way it was supposed to, and had it responded the way it was supposed to, the damage that was caused would not have been caused that way. So, yeah, they felt like bad people and they felt like bad guys for obvious reasons, but I don't think. I think they're kind of more like like Robin Hood, they're. I think they were the good guys, but there are the other branches of Avalanche that they introduced. You barely see them, but I have heard that there's actually a cell phone game, like a mobile game that was only available in Japan. I don't even think you can get it anymore. But they dive deeper into the other branches of Avalanche, and I'm not sure if you guys want me to spoil that because this is very very like nitpicky, like weird stuff going on, like fringe. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay. So apparently in this mobile game, which by the way, the Avalanche people have the same costumes as the ones that go to save you. So it's very intentional that they look the exact same. It turns out that I don't remember if it was Shinra that hired them, but basically they were hired as another. Basically, they're paid for, and they're corrupted. So that Avalanche branch is corrupted, and there is evil things going on inside Avalanche. But that's not Barrett and Tifa and them.
That does make a lot of sense though, because after they save you in chapter 4, Biggs questions it. He's like, "I hear that they might be working with Wutai. Do you think that could be true?" And then later, the president, after you beat before you beat the Airbuster, the president says, like, "You think you're in control? You never have been. Like, now you have helped us bring glorious war back." So I think it's spot on. I think they were definitely bought out by Shinra, made to look like they were being funded by to help bring about another war.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
I think I froze there for a second, guys. What was the last like 10 seconds of what you said, Tim?
That the rest of Avalanche is definitely being controlled because I think Shinra's and they say Shinra is trying to start a war, and I think they're funding the rest of Avalanche to do that.
Okay, that was exactly how I felt. Like whenever I started hearing about outside sourcing and stuff like that, I was kind of wondering if Avalanche was even coming up with these plans by themselves. You know what I mean? I was kind of wondering like war, your orders from the higher ups. They're not the ones fighting the war. You know what I mean? Like, I was wondering if that was sort of what was going on, where they were getting orders. You know, Barrett was the leader, and he was kind of believing these orders to be pure, and then the rest of the group was kind of following his leadership. Right. I was kind of wondering that.
Yeah, so as far as we know, Barrett is not receiving orders anymore, though. They were removed from the rest and kind of discarded because they were seen as too extreme. And I think that's because Shinra really had an idea for what Avalanche should be, and is gung-ho, let's bring back the and save everyone.
If they are corrupt, and Barrett's not going to follow orders that goes against his beliefs.
No. I think what I was kind of thinking was that he believed it. Like Barrett was he thought he
wanted to believe it.
Exactly. And then I was wondering if he was just kind of the leader and everybody else was just like, okay, we'll listen to you because like even with it was Tifa at the beginning in the bar where I think this is where she's like giving Cloud a drink or whatever, and she isn't wanting to do it, right? She wasn't wanting to do the mission.
That's
correct?
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so that was just all I was just kind of confused on what all that was.
Yeah, well, and you do see that after they blow up the first reactor as well, when they're out on the street, and Barrett has to give them a pep talk. He is truly the one who believes most in their cause. And the rest of them, they believe it, and that's why they're there, but some of it is, that they trust him.
Exactly.
And I think it's hard not to question it, especially because the outcome that they received was something that they did not even imagine. Like, I think that if the reactor blew up more in terms of what they were expecting, I don't think that they would have necessarily needed the pep talk as much. I think they probably would have left and they've been like, job well done, we did everything well. But because of how catastrophic the outcome was, they were like, whoa, we did not know that we were getting ourselves into this. And Barrett, it's up to Barrett to rally them up for that because he is the leader of Avalanche, at least part of this sector, and yeah, he is the one that's the most gung.
Yeah.
Right.
And the dramatic irony of that scene just killed me because Jessie beats herself up about it for so long. And as the player, you get to see them sabotage their own plant and, throw the missiles and lasers around. And I'm just like, Jessie, no, like, come on, like, you're better than
And
this.
she dies like that too.
Yep.
Which that's the saddest
Yep.
part.
Yeah.
She never gets to
She
find
never
it. Yeah.
realizes.
And her,
I didn't even think about that.
And her
Yep.
parents are on the plate too. So when the plate crashes, when Jessie dies, her parents die too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
that is dark.
Yes.
It's rough.
Yes, it is.
That's crazy. Yeah, see, that was one of the things that kind of shocked me more than anything within Final Fantasy VII was just that there are so many parallels to really heavy stuff that goes on every day in the world, like really heavy stuff. And I was like, whoa. I was playing the game. I'm like, oh, damn, this is pretty heavy. I never expected that a game called Final Fantasy was going to be so grounded. You know what I mean?
Let me ask this real quick. How do you watch any anime? So clearly, by what Tim said earlier, he's watched a handful of anime.
I don't watch a whole lot of anime.
Okay. The reason why I bring this up is because anime and like just Japan in general, I feel like they really typically. I mean, of course, they have some that doesn't do this, but they have a lot of great anime and great stories that dive really heavily into like serious feelings, serious topics, like some of the highest emotional stakes I've ever seen. Like the top 10 times have been through anime. Like, I mean, of course, there's some silly anime that's nothing but like dumb jokes and weird stuff going on. But like, there's definitely like anime that taps into like this really like deep stuff. So like for me and Tim, it's like this makes sense.
It is kind of expected. So one of the you may have you seen or heard of the anime Death? Okay, so in Death Note, a kid receives a book that he can write a name in, and it'll kill the person. And so he sets out to be like a hero with it by killing criminals, and then he gets a god complex. Well, Americans watch it and they're like, "Wow, this is a really cool anime." But the whole anime and manga is actually a satire of the Japanese judicial system, where you might as well not even go to court. Right? Like you. If you commit a crime, you are pretty like, and so like the whole thing is a satire, and like it's hard to see because it's not our experience, but they do really get into a lot of deep stuff very often.
Yeah, they bring up morality, like what's justice, what's right, what's wrong. Is it okay to be, judge, jury, and executioner, like, all that kind of stuff. But we digress. Final Fantasy VII.
Different video.
that's another video. Let's see what else. So, who was your favorite character to play as? Because I'll say this. Like for me, I this is kind of a cop out. I actually surprisingly enjoyed playing all the characters, and I feel like most people did, which is astounding because I feel like it would have been so easy for them to mess up some of the characters with the way that they feel. They all were fun to play.
Yeah, I personally, I would have to. If we're gonna go,
you had to pick one. We'll do that.
Okay, if we had to pick one, oh man, that is tough. I'll say this. My favorite little itty bitty like kind of move was when Cloud, he would spike down with his sword and the enemy would pop up and then he would like baseball bat swing and crack it. That was such a cool little feature that I feel like nobody really, like the reviews I've watched, nobody talks about that. I was like, that's one of the
Wait, I don't know if I've seen this. This sounds new to me.
You're talking about it's part of his Punisher mode combo, right?
No, literally just square. Like yeah.
Okay.
Like, but when you're doing the heavy attacks, is that the one? I think it's when he's doing. Maybe it's just the normal ones, but yeah, no. In Brandon's right. It's exactly that. He smacks them to the ground so hard that they bounce back up, and he just home runs.
Yeah, I guess it just. Okay. I think I've seen. I guess I just wasn't paying like that much. I just didn't notice that detail, but playing it in my head, no, it's cool.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's what it is. It's that, like, people like y'all who have played all the games and stuff, I'm sure it's not as cool because, like, either you've seen it before or whatever the case may be, you're looking for other things. But, like, a newcomer, like, I kind of played so many games, I just kind of look at sort of the smaller, the kind of base stuff, really, because whenever I'm playing a game, I'm playing it the first time and trying to understand just the simplest forms of it. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like Final Fantasy for dummies. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I noticed those like little just silly things, and I just thought that was like one of the coolest little combat features I've seen in a long time. And it, like you said, it's so simple. It's just pressing square, and he does it, but he does it so often. And I just thought it was really.
I will say with Cloud, I love how balanced he feels, because he feels agile while still hitting very hard as a melee character. So I love that about him. And I love how Tifa feels like so nimble and fast, and she's just like rapid punching and kicking. It's so much fun. When I first got to play her, I was in love with playing that character. By the end of it, I think I mostly, like, if I had to pick, I'd probably pick Cloud, but like I can play any of those characters by themselves and fully enjoy it.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, it doesn't change it, even though I've played a ton of the Final Fantasy games. It doesn't make it any less cool, especially coming from the first game where, like, you always get to see the Buster Sword, because it's a ridiculous weapon, right? Like, I don't care how much you love Final Fantasy, you can look at the Buster Sword and say, this is dumb, and I love it, because it's like just a giant hunk of iron. And in the original game, outside of cutscenes and outside of Advent Children, you just saw like overhead turn-based slashes, and so you didn't get to feel the weight of it. Whereas this game, in recent times that they have shown it, you, like, when he just slams into him, like, it feels heavy. And so I think you're exactly right. I think that simple fact makes it feel really cool, whether this is your first game or your 16th.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I just had like a mind blank on it. Like, there's so much to observe, like, in that game, and there's some like, my mind is scattered because there's so much that we've discussed, and there's so much to talk about. It's just like I feel like overloaded.
Right.
Like, honestly, after I finished this game, I had just watched like tons of people talking about the ending. Like, I listened to one like video that was like 3 hours long. And I listened to another one that was 3 hours long. Then I went to bed listening to one that was like an hour and a half long. Then I woke up and then like watched another. Like, it was crazy. Like, I digested so much of this content. But I really wanted to do this on our own end, because a lot of those that I listened to, it started getting on my nerves because they were very like pessimistic about the future of the game, and a lot of them were like overly negative, I felt like. And I was like, man, like, yeah, there's a ton of people doing these types of videos out there currently that I found, but they're not really speaking to me or like saying the things that I want to hear. And I saw that there's tons of great reviews, like on Google. There's like, it's like a 97% voted up for liking this game. And I feel like when it comes to those types of reviews, you get more angry people going out of their way to review something than people that like something. So the fact that it's that high, I think, says a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that something that guys like you, who y'all really know this stuff, like, you really know the lore, I think y'all are looking at everything so there's so much for y'all to take in, you know what I mean? Because you know the lore of this that ties to that, and that, like, and whenever you have a brand new player going into it, they're knowing none of that. So it, like, and I think the coolest thing about it is you guys are talking to one side of an audience, and I'm talking to another audience, but each side of the spectrum, I think, can get an equal amount of enjoyment out of this game. And I don't think that that's often done to this level.
Yeah, I agree. So in my Discord channel, I had some people say like, oh yeah, I heard this was a great Final Fantasy game if you love the original. And I'm just thinking like, no, that's not the, like, you can jump right into this. Like, I had the pleasure of playing this with my girlfriend the entire time. She had never seen the story for Final Fantasy VII. She came at this with a complete new perspective. The only other Final Fantasy that she knew of was 15 because she watched me play through that. It has nothing to do with 7. And she loved this game. Like, she literally the other day sat on the couch staring at a blank TV. And I walked up to her and I said, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, aren't you going to be playing Final Fantasy 7?" I was like, I was like, "I beat it." And then she was like, "Yeah, but I want to keep watching you play it." It was like we can't like give it up just because it's so fun and it just means so much to us. And on top of that, now this is gonna sound crazy, but this is a true story. I have always like floated the idea of like thinking it'd be cool, like when I eventually get married, that it would have a Final Fantasy theme to it, because it's like Final Fantasy means a lot to me. It's something that I was raised on. My dad and I, like, that was a bonding experience for me and him, and I love the music and everything it has. Well, my girlfriend looked at me the other day and she was like, you know what? I want a Final Fantasy wedding. And to me, that was because of this game. So I refuse anyone to tell me that this game sucks, because for me, it did so much, and it means a lot to me. I think it's a really good game, and I'm so happy, because as this was coming up closer, I was thinking like, oh man, I don't know how Tim feels about this game. I already knew.
What if he hates
Yeah,
it?
like what if you come on here and you're just like, yeah, I can't wait to talk about it so I can trash it. And I was prepared though. I was like gonna I was gonna I wasn't gonna be combative with you or anything. I was gonna just right. I was gonna respect your opinion and try to figure a way to make this all still work. But it made it a lot easier that we're on the same page. So that's cool.
Well, and it's kind of one of those things too of and Vince, I know you listen to at least one episode of my podcast because you heard us talk about your game. But I don't know, it's just more fun to be positive about things. Like, yeah, if I wanted to, I could be pessimistic with what they're doing, but also we said, I don't want to see 3 games of just reskinning. I'm excited to see what they do with it going forward. And I'm just, like you said, it's a whole new experience for new people, for people like us that have already seen a lot of it. And these are good for people like us because, we are now Brandon, you're on the same page as us on the ending, right? We've played the game before, but none of us saw that coming.
Yeah, none of us saw that coming. So now we're all on the same page, like you said. And I think something that a lot of people I see comment on that they're missing is they think that if this game was remade the exact same with updated graphics, they think it would have the same impact. But I don't necessarily think that's true, because when people know nothing about the game and it comes out and then Aerith dies, that's going to affect people differently than if they're okay, well, in this remake we're going to see that with updated graphics, which will still be cool. It'd still be a good game. Yeah. It would still be nice to see that with updated graphics and everything, but the impact and the story is going to be different. So I feel like what they're setting up is a way, like we addressed earlier, is to leave this game with a sense of wonder like the original game had, but also have it where we can have these higher highs and think that we can escape this. Because now I hear original fans say, oh, well, this is dumb. They're going to save Aerith. I give up. It's pointless. And if people actually believe that Aerith can be saved and she can't, that is the only way to actually trick someone again. Because if they just did it, if they did the remake completely the same, then it would trick no one. But the way that they set it up, they could trick everyone. It's actually kind of genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I also think that not to talk about Resident Evil too much here, but with everything you guys are saying, it seems like with the remake they added more to Final Fantasy VII, opposed to I don't know if you guys played the original Resident Evil 3 compared to the remake. There's so much more content in the original Resident Evil 3 than the remake, and I can understand that's justified complaints from fans that are like, dude, you took out a lot of stuff. Pretty
iconic places.
The best. The clock tower is the best location in the game to me. So I don't necessarily, everybody's entitled to whatever opinion they ever want to have. But I do think that whenever you're going to critique something, try to at least appreciate what it took to make it. Because if you're critiquing things being taken out, that's okay, it took a little less to make that. If you're critiquing things being put in, it's dude, they worked hard on that.
They added so much to this. There's so many little touches, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was looking at my notes here, and I was like, okay, I've actually hit a surprising amount of this without having to address my notes. But one thing I was kind of forgetting about, but this is a great segue, which is they added in so many. Not only did they add in a lot of the mechanics from the original game, so they brought back the summons, they brought back materia. Materia was a major thing for original fans, because that was an amazing system that only belonged in the Final Fantasy VII series, and it's something that we've all wanted to see again, and people were worried they weren't going to bring that into this remake, considering it was going to be more of a real-time action. People were like, oh, I don't know how they're going to do that. But the fact that they brought back materia, it's so fun. I'm so glad they did that. They also brought back a lot of convenient things that I haven't heard anyone talk about, but you'll finish a side quest and it says, hey, do you want to just return back here? Or or I hear people complaining about the level design because it's very linear, which I kind of understand. But at the same time, I'm very thankful that there's a lot of games that I've played where you do a mission, you go all the way to the end of this level, and then it's like, all right, time. You have to walk all the way back.
All the way back.
And in this game, anytime you have to double back to go somewhere, like when you go to the Don Corneo sewers and you fall in the pit, and then later you have to go back with Leslie, it's been damaged by the fall of the plate, so you go through a different route, and there's new enemies, and there's a new setup, and it's not the exact same. So even when you have to double back through familiar places, it's changed. Or like when you go back to Walmart, it's during the daytime, and you see like how shitty it looks when it's not like lit up.
Yep.
So I think that they did a really good job making it so you don't have to do anything repetitive, you know? Like, and I have a friend who didn't want to play this game because he thought you'd have to grind all the time. But at least from my personal experience, I never grinded in the game. I did all the side quests, but aside from that, like I never went out of my way to just repetitively fight an enemy.
I will say, and I'm probably in a minority on this, but I am so glad that we got rid of random encounters. I think for the way they did this game, like because it gets rid of the grind, it gets rid of the like you're just trying to get to a shop, and instead everything's attacking you as you're walking.
I agree.
Because like I think removal of grind is always a good thing, and I know for a lot of people, you know, that like some people felt like they were going to have to grind and hated that because of old Final Fantasy games. Some people I've seen don't like the lack of grinding because of old Final Fantasy games, but like I do really think it speedwinds the game. It makes the story easier to follow because you're not fighting 1,000 things in between points. Yeah, I really think we benefited a lot from that.
I completely agree, and I hear people, I've heard this like 12 times at least, people complaining that they're like, oh, one of the downsides of the game is the side quest because you just go and kill rats. It's literally one time. No, they made it like if I was a newcomer who had not played the game, I would, hearing what I've heard, I would feel like you would have to go on like 20 different side quests to kill nothing but rats. Now I do understand it is, I will say, a bad first impression in terms of the first quests you do are the weakest out of all the side quests. Like they're the weakest among all of them in my opinion. But I think it serves as like a good, like, you know, getting used to Tifa, fighting with her, a little bit more combat expertise. Yeah, sure, they probably could have made the quest a little bit better, but like, again, minor nitpick because it's such a small portion of the game.
Right. Brandon, I have a point, but I'll like, do you want to go first?
Yeah, this is just super quick for me. I actually can say the only nitpick that I actually have with the game is the placement of the side quests. I don't think that was I thought that could have been done a lot better because there was I don't remember the exact point in the story, but there was a point in the story where everything was going crazy and I was like, dude, let me see this story. And they were like, we might need to go around and you know, help some more of the citizens. I was like, no chance I'm helping these people. I want to see what's going on in the story. But that's, once again, coming from someone who's never saw the story. So I was just like hooked on the story, which is kind of, if you think about it more than anything, it's more of a compliment to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I agree with you on that. That's something that side quests in pretty much every game I played kind of struggles with. The Witcher 3 is a big one for me. You know, I don't know if you guys have played it, but you're chasing after someone and it's like, hey, if you don't catch up with her, she's gonna die. But also here's 30 side quests you can do, and it's like, well, if you're invested in the story and you're like suspending disbelief, you're not gonna stop and do these. So like side quests always have weird pacing. But I do, you know, earlier we talked about, and I told you about how Cloud's not an actual soldier. I think those very weak side quests at the beginning actually do a very good job of kind of poking that narratively, because it's like, hey, this guy's a soldier first class, but also that rabid dog almost killed you. So like maybe we should stop and think about this for a second.
I was going to say that brings up a big sour spot for some people. For the ending of this game, you notice Cloud's way stronger when he fights Sephiroth. But I think what people aren't considering is I firmly believe that is Cloud at his peak. I think that when they're fighting, that is in a realm that time is not existent in the realm that they're fighting in. So when you see Cloud diving through the air, chopping through things, I think that is meant to represent Cloud at his top level, the best that he's ever been. I think you're right. People are like, how are we going to play the next If you fight a dog, you struggle against. It's like he's not going to start the next game off being what he was at the end of that fight.
That makes sense.
And it makes sense story-wise,
yep.
too. It's not like a retcon or anything. It just genuinely makes sense.
Yeah. I was just going to say, to kind of give, because I kind of knocked the side quest there, one thing I will say positive about the side quest is how the community responds to it. That was
their awesome. Dialogue changes throughout the story, too, and depending on what you do, which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was, detail is very, very in this game, because if you take a second to be mad about this, you can kind of miss some of the stuff that's real small but really, really good.
Yeah. And back to the convenient things, like there's a ton of side quests where you'll go somewhere, like with Leslie, where you need to get Don Corneo's things behind like a cage in the sewers. Well, he climbs up the ladder and you could follow him, but it shows a little cutscene after you hit the lever and says, hey, here it is, you can go back here. And then when you go travel back, it's not that far back. So it's very convenient. It shows you that there's a video so you can't miss it. There's also the moment where if you go fight the behemoth, you'll automatically obtain its horn. And then when you go do a side quest, there's a doctor that says, hey, I need this behemoth's horn. Well, the game doesn't make you go back and fight the behemoth again. It's like, oh, you already picked it up, thanks. And then he takes it. So, like, it does everything so convenient in that way. And, like, I just really appreciate that because I hate doubling back. I hate repetition. Like, I can't stand it. And this game did a really good job not doing that. And, side quests do have weird pacing. I appreciate that Tifa makes a note, though. She, like, towards the last half of the side quest, at the end of the game, she's like, yeah, we should help these people. Like, be nice because, of this and that. And I was like, well, it's a nice nod that they acknowledge it. And Tifa, like, gives at least a little bit of a reason to actually do this right now.
Yeah, that is true. That is 100% true.
Yeah, I feel like this game had so much care and love put into it. Real quick, before I forget, I'm just popping up things. So this blew my mind because I did not know until I finished the game and I was listening to some videos. There are these things called Chapter 14 resolutions. Do you guys know what I'm talking about at all? Okay.
I have no idea.
So, in Chapter 14, I believe that's the chapter that you stay over with Aerith's mom, and you stay with Barrett and Tifa, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you walk outside the door, and you see someone in the garden. Now, here's the crazy part. For different players, it's a different character. We all did not see the same character, necessarily.
Wow. So, what? Are you... well, damn. I was about to say, did you see, like... Are you talking about the moment where you interact with Tifa?
No, I interacted with Aerith. That was Aerith that was there.
Oh,
really?
So who'd you get, Tim?
Okay, so I had Tifa too. So like, at least I have somebody I can commiserate here with. What? You had Aerith?
Yes, and it's crazy because Aerith is captured at this point. She's not with your party. Yeah. So I went back and saw the other two resolutions. So I have now seen the one that you've seen because what you saw was Tifa crying, right? Like she goes up and she like puts her head on Cloud, and then Cloud like stands there and he's just taken back by everything, and then he hugs her. An amazing scene. I hate that I missed that. I will say though that you equally missed like just as good of a scene. You see Aerith standing there, and she's staring up at the stars, and you walk up to her, and you're just kind of like, "How are you here? Like I don't understand." And Aerith is like just talking to you about everything, and she's like, "Cloud, like I want you to know that no matter what happens, you can't fall in love with me." And
I saw that line. Written on an article, and I was like, "Wait, where was that?"
Yeah, so so it's a big moment, and I'm surprised that and so is the Tifa thing. So I'm surprised that you can miss one. But she's like, "Cloud, don't fall in love with me," and you have no context for that. You're like, "Why are you saying that?" But it's because she knows that she's gonna die in the future. That's why.
Yep. Did you ever figure out why certain people got different?
So I'll get to that in a minute. But after she says, "Don't fall in love with me," she says, "Cloud, like just so you know." Oh, and in that moment, it looks like Cloud does love her because he looks surprised when she says that, and he just like looks away like, "How does she know?" How's she know? And then Aerith says, "Cloud, I really appreciate all the time that we've had together. You mean so much to me." And And Cloud is like, well, we're going to go save you. And she's like, I can't, she says something, and then she like disappears. And it's just like, man, that is crazy. But back to your point, Brandon, about why I saw that. Well, actually, I need to say this too. There, you can get Barrett outside too. Barrett is the third resolution. Yeah.
Really?
What do you do with him?
So with Barrett, you give each other a hug. No, just joking. No. With Barrett, you walk outside and you're like, hey, so you couldn't sleep? And then Barrett's like, nah, I just got too much on my mind. And then Barrett starts like kind of venting to you about everything going on. And you just talk to him, just kind of this like bro moment. And then Barrett looks at you and he's like, you know what? I never thought talking to your punk ass would help me go to sleep better, but I guess it did wonders for me. And he said, you know, you really come around, and you know, I appreciate that. And he's like, all right, let's get back inside, and they walk back inside, and they just kind of have that bro moment, which is cool. But yeah, I think what it boils down to is when you fall from Don Corneo's into the pitfall, and your position, you stand up and you see Tifa on one side, Aerith on the other, and you walk over to pick one of them up. Who did you pick up first?
I picked up Tifa.
Okay,
yep.
I think that's what it was. Because for me, I was struggling because going into this game, I've been more of a Tifa fan. I actually didn't remember. I don't remember I don't know. I just remember so much more about Tifa than I did Aerith. Like going into this game, and my girlfriend Abby, like she loves both characters. Like Aerith is her favorite, Tifa is her second favorite. But she was like, just go for Aerith. So I was like, okay, I'll go for Aerith. So I picked up Aerith, and the dialogue there changes too. Like that whole scene plays out differently. I think whenever you pick up Tifa, she says something like, you know, what does Aerith mean to you? And she starts inquiring about that. I can't remember what Aerith says when you pick her up, but it's completely different. But I think that is the biggest distinction. I don't know how to get Barrett's though. I guess for Barrett you have to. I think for Barrett you have to not do any of the side quests or not do all of the side quests with Aerith or with Tifa. That's probably what it is. Like if you just kind of skip out on a lot of the side quest stuff, I feel like you will get Barrett's cutscene.
So Barrett's a punishment.
Sort of, yeah. But I feel like most
That's
people will get
crazy.
Tifa and Aerith, I think.
That is crazy.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that could change. I just assumed that was the scene.
Yeah, well, did you know there's other scenes that change too in the game? For example, so that's the biggest one though. That is by far the biggest one. The other ones are more like cosmetic. So you know when Tifa shows up for Don Corneo's and she's wearing like a crazy outfit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
The outfit that she's wearing is dependent on if you did all the side quests with her, and if you did all the side quests with her, she says like, "Hey, I want to we should go on a date together. What do you think I should wear?" And then you pick which option, and it gives you different results later on for Don Corneo.
Oh, see, I didn't realize you had to do all of the side quests for that. I just did them because, so I didn't know.
Yeah, you completely miss that scene if you don't do all the side quests with Tifa.
Interesting.
Yep. And it was funny because when I was watching the stream. The guy was reading those, and he's like, exotic. He's like, exotic. He's like, I'm going to do this for research, not for any of my personal gain or anything, I promise. And he clicked exotic, and then later he sees it, and he's like, what? That's not exotic. And they're like, yes, it is. It's just you're wanting erotic, but no, this is exotic. Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, what's funny that if you don't get the scenes, then you will get the option as if you chose mature. It defaults it to mature, which is her in this like, I think it's like a purple dress. I'm colorblind, so I'm not 100% sure. I think it's a purple dress that she wears. Otherwise, she will be wearing like a kimono, or she will be wearing, like maybe like a geisha outfit. I can't really remember the other one, but it's something else.
Yeah.
So how does that work with chapter select though? Like, because it preserves your quest progression.
I have no idea.
So if you want, so I may just never see Barrett out in the field. So
yeah, I'm not sure about that. I just went back and looked that part up, yeah, I mean it's the same with Aerith too. There's optional things for her. Like I got her with the red dress, and they shot fireworks, and then they had a red carpet that Johnny unrolled. which you have to do some certain specific things to get that. You have to do all of her side quests, and then before you head back, like before you go somewhere, you have to go somewhere else. And Brandon, did you see that? Like the moment with Aerith where she has like a red dress and she's walking back, and Johnny walks up and he has a red carpet and he throws it out, and there's fireworks going on everywhere, and she's looking at you, and it shows a close up of her eyes.
Yeah, I believe so. The wall market, right?
Yeah, so that's missable. Like there are people that play the game and just they don't see that.
Wow, and that's because. Is that because you didn't do the side quests in the Walmart?
I think that's the main thing. Yeah, I think that if you kind of skip out on some of that, you'll miss that.
Dude, those were awesome.
Dude, the wall market stuff, amazing.
Was awesome.
I completely agree. Some like when I was playing that, I was like, man, this is some of the most fun I've had gaming like ever. It was amazing. I'm
100% there. Like getting the drunk dude, that was puking the medicine and all that stuff, and then the dad, that was hilarious. You go and you have this like thought that you're saving this dad, but then you go and help him, and he goes straight back to the strip clubs.
For me, I really love the dance scene. Like I was not expecting the dancing at all. Like in your review, Brandon, you mentioned the squats. The squats are actually a part of the original game. Like, there's actually, like, a whole squatting, like, section going on, and they actually recreated that for this remake. The dancing's completely new, I believe. I don't think the dancing was part of the original. Okay, so the dancing thing, I was not expecting it, and just to see Cloud, like, sitting there dancing, I was like, what am I watching? This is insane.
It was done so well, too. Like, whenever they would bring up the, where you had to hit circle, and then it would kind of, like, bust into this mist or whatever, like, it was like a breaking. Like it was like so aesthetically pleasing, and also
it looked like it could be its own game. Like, but yeah, it's Oh man, dude, this game, like, so much fun. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm playing through on hard mode. I'm just now at the part where I'm getting out of the first reactor, so I'm still at the very beginning. But so far so good. I'm enjoying it a lot still. I'm so happy that they have a hard mode, like. Because when you go back and replay it, you keep your level, you keep your equipment, keep your materia, keep your loadout, you keep everything that you have, and then the enemies actually get new moves. And there's like some new dialogue, it seems, like for the enemy tactics and stuff. So like the Scorpion now fires more lasers at the beginning of the game, and he gets like this energy shielding around him that you have to use fire to get rid of instead of lightning. If you use lightning on it, it won't do like anything. So. And I died because of that. I didn't know. I found out way too late in that battle. I was like out of MP. I cast it worked. I was like, oh crap, I'm out of MP. And since you can't use items, I was just completely screwed.
Once again, though, man, people are missing that. Like with these reviews, these negative stuff, like that's a lot of work. Like that's a lot of work to go back and reprogram that, to have different elements for the enemy encounters, and that's a lot of work, man. They should really, hats off to them for sure for putting in all that work.
Yeah. Now, what did you guys think about the weapon system? How they had it where each weapon had a new ability you could learn, so it incentivizes you to switch between weapons, but none of them are actually like better than the other. Like you can use any weapon you want throughout the game.
Yeah, I really liked it because, I like being able to just stick with that Buster Sword the whole time and just like swap, get a new, like stick with it to get proficient and then swap back, and it's still viable. Because like the worst thing in any game is when you a really cool set of armor or a really cool weapon and then it gets outclassed.
Yeah, especially
and now you have to use something else.
He has one of the most iconic weapons of all time in games. Like it like I wanted so badly for that final fight to use the Buster Sword, but I had forgotten to change it right as I got into the final fight. And I was like, oh, whatever. I was using a weapon called the Twin Stinger. I'm not sure if you guys found that one. Yeah, and I was like, this one's still really cool. Like this Twin Stinger thing's awesome, so I'll still use it, sure. At least I'm not going in with a nail bat.
Yeah, I think those are the only two weapons I used was the Twin Stinger and regular. I don't think I upgraded it.
Did you use the other swords at all? Like, did you use the hard edge? Did you use the nail bat? Did you use?
I never used it. Clouds.
Really? So you do
Were you
miss out on
supposed
some
to?
cool that, yeah. Well, because I mean, the first thing you get is that iron sword, and triple slash that you get from it is
Triple
just an
slash was like my
excellent
go-to
skill.
for most of. I mean, triple slash was up
Yep.
here for like what I would use most of the time.
Wait, I had triple slash. Is that so?
Well, you had to
Maybe
at least use one of them then.
yeah. So maybe I didn't use the twin stinger. Maybe it was the other one that
Okay,
I
so
that I had.
so you start off with Buster Sword. The next one you get is like the Iron Blade or whatever. That gives you the triple slash.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay,
I had that.
you eventually get one. The Twin Stinger gives you one called Counter Stance, and it
Never
really
had that.
helped me out with Sephiroth because what it does is you hit Counter Stance and you get in this stance, and as soon as he hits you, you counter it and you just start like welling on him. And so anytime Sephiroth was trying to hit me, I could counter him and just destroy him.
Okay, yeah. See, I never had that. Yeah, I well on the like stat thing on the where you look at the stats, they were always so similar, all the swords. So I was like, well, this one looks cool. I'll keep this one. I'm like I had no idea that there were different even abilities
Did
for
you
each
upgrade
sword.
them using the skill points? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
just
God.
making sure.
Like, man, this game must have been really hard.
It's like, guys, I was really struggling with this one.
Yeah, no, I upgraded everything, but I only upgraded like one weapon. You know, like I never switched with anyone. Really.
Okay, interesting. I will say there's 6 weapons for each character, and some of them are easy to miss. So I think on my first playthrough, I did not use any walkthroughs at all. I missed 3 weapons. I missed one of Aerith's, which you have to steal from an enemy. I missed.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Now,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah. So what? So you know the flying chariot skeleton guy? Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to steal from him, and you get a bladed scepter. It's like a double-sided bladed scepter
Oh my
for Aerith.
God.
And yeah, I know. And apparently, like Maximilian, dude, he knew that in the original game you could steal from that guy to get a weapon for Aerith. So they brought it into the remake because it was a part of the original game. So, but I did not know
That's
that. So
crazy.
I completely missed that. And
Yeah.
then there's the moment where you play as Tifa in the headquarters for Shinra, and you do like the monkey bar thing.
Mm.
There's a certain area you can go to for her called Purple Pain, which I had missed. And
I didn't get
think
those
I
either.
did get that.
yeah,
one.
and then there's the guy from the butler that's also there who says you can pay him 10,000 gil and he'll give you like information.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I was like, I don't need this because I was like, I'm gonna talk to anyone. Like, I'm gonna go around and talk to everyone anyways. So I don't need this information. But so I did not pay him the money. I didn't realize he gives you a weapon if you pay him the money. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I did that one.
Yeah.
I did.
I went back to the chapter select though, and I did it, and so now I have weapons. So I got both.
Mhm.
I got both those weapons. The only weapon I am now missing is Aerith's. So
Now,
Yeah,
so,
thank you for telling me that. I never
yeah,
would have known.
yeah, you're welcome.
Yep.
so tell me this: like, is there a reason to use different weapons other than just the abilities? Like, are other weapons better than the others? Because everything I saw was very, very similar statistically. So that's why I was just kind of like, yeah, I'll just use the one I've been going with. I know this one I'm familiar with.
Some of them will be better at
Yeah.
certain things. They're pretty similar once you upgrade them as much as you can, but especially after you have as many skill points as you can get, you can kind of min max them to do different things. And at that point, if you're like, I mean, there's ways you can be like, oh well, I really want Aerith to only do fire damage. Like there's one of her weapons may be better at that.
yeah.
But overall, they're about
They all seem balanced pretty well from what I can tell. But I had fun just trying to max them out for different playstyles. So I have the Mithril Saber, and I was like, this is going to be my weapon when I want to be all magic based. So it's completely spec'd out for magic. I have another weapon that I think it's the Hard Edge. I'm like, this is all offense, like no magic. I mean, of course you still have some magic, but it's like the magic damage is going to be here, physical damage up here. And then most of I do try to go for more of a balance because it just turns out that's probably better. Like you can play better that way. With Barrett, it's the most notable, like for his differences because he has some guns that are like melee based. Like because he has a giant wrecking ball that you smash people with. And
I don't even think I
well,
got
he becomes
that.
the Hulk, basically. He runs around just smashing people.
Yeah.
So it completely changes Barrett's playstyle. And he also can get a claw. And the claw is melee based too.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I got either of those. I could be wrong, but I don't even think I started checking the weapons after a certain point. I was just upgrading.
Hey, I mean, at least you still had fun with it. I mean, that's what's important.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is just always, you know, it's good if you have fun while you play it, and then you learn there's more to go back to later. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? We've been talking for a good at least 2 hours about this. I think we covered all my notes. I'll double check everything just to make sure because I don't want to be kicking myself later tonight and be like, man, I forgot to bring this up.
Yeah, actually, there is something that I'd like to mention just as a sort of fun thing. Is the amount of fun in the game. Like, I think that's something people should really take note of. There's a lot of fun in the game that has nothing to do with the game. The darts, the squatting, the dancing, the levers and stuff, the puzzles, that does have to do with the game. But it was designed awesome, being able to bring the hand, drop the thing, have Aerith hop back on the thing and bring her back around. That was all awesome. The motorcycle thing was awesome. Like, there's so much just fun.
I'll say this for me personally. I'd say I agree with all that except for like the hand thing. I think isn't the most fun. However, because the characters are so well written and their dialogue in those scenes are so good, and the music is phenomenal. We haven't touched on the music because, it's just phenomenal, and that's basically what there is to say.
Yeah, I don't think we need to really go into that. It's just
but it carries. Like, for me, it carried some of those moments where it's like, okay, here's the hand puzzle. It's what, and it is cool how the hand like inverts on itself. And it wasn't that I hated the hand puzzle or anything. It's just I think that had the music been bad, had the characters been bad, had the dialogue been bad, I feel like most people that would be playing that scene would be like, this is kind of bad. But because everything else is so good, I'm like, heck yeah, I love this hand puzzle. Like, it made me like it more. It actually made me like it. So I did enjoy it. I just think if you removed everything else that was exceptional, I could see that on its own not being the most fun.
Right. I think the more than anything, the change of pace was what was really cool to me. Like, you're going from, you're in this, and I sewer levels, I'm just over in video games. I'm over sewer levels. So anytime you can have something somewhere in the game near a sewer level that's actually different than just the same exact sewer crap that you see in all the games, that was just kind of cool to me, just to have that placed there to change up the pace of the game for just a split second.
It's a unique challenge too, because this game, because of Midgar, what it is sewers, it's slums, it's junky, it's like it. It doesn't. It seems like that would be hard to make that fun. Like, how are you going to make this feel fun and lived in and great to experience? I feel like they did a really good job, and I heard someone mention the art direction, which is something that I don't necessarily think of a lot in terms of color, because I don't see every shade of color, but I can see that a different art director could have easily made this game tons of boring grays, but there's a lot of vibrant teal color and stuff like that. They use different colorations of greens and blues and silver, so much more interesting, that actually makes something that could have been boring industrial look to look like it pops a lot more for the setting that it's in, which I really appreciate. And the music, the one thing I can say, other than it being phenomenal, is it's so amazing that the way it cuts into the other songs, when you go from one song to another, it does a flawless transition, and it's so good. And I believe this is the first Final Fantasy that doesn't have a specific song for the battle music. So Brandon, if you play any other Final Fantasy game, it's like Pokemon in the sense that whenever you do the battle, there's always that same music that loops over and over. In this game, that's not the case. It depends on what area you're in. It plays different music. But I thought it was completely fine because the music was always killer. It's so good.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was the first time.
Yeah, and it worked out wonderful for this. I
That
guess
is awesome.
does anyone have any last notes? Because I got like probably like one last note that I'll bring up, but you guys can say any last pieces.
Well,
Yeah.
I have one last
Sure, yeah.
question. Behind you, there's a pop figure on the top of your shelf. Is that a Cloud pop figure back there? The black. What is that
So
behind
yeah,
you?
nice eye. I actually set him there right before this video. I was like, I'm not sure if people can see him. I had him somewhere else, but yeah, it's so
Perfect.
he's not a Funko Pop. He's like a plush. He's probably about
Oh, okay.
like the size of a Funko Pop plus 50% more. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's of him, and I have one of Lightning beside him, and yeah,
That's what I thought that was.
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. I appreciate
Heck yeah.
that. I have Yuna over here. She's hard to see, but she's over there. So
Yep.
yeah,
Fair
I couldn't
enough.
bring out all my Final Fantasy stuff here, but I have a decent bit.
I like the casual staging though. That's good.
I appreciate
That's good.
that.
I think the big takeaway from this whole entire thing is Vince's attention to detail. Final Fantasy VII.
Hey, it's only because
Vince.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's only
Say
because
what?
I just really dived into this, and like I said, I grew up with Final Fantasy. It means a lot to me.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, no, that's dope, dude. I think that's awesome for sure. I think that any type of fandom is the coolest thing in the world, especially with platforms like YouTube, podcasts, stuff like that. It's just the coolest thing to be able to start up something, talk about something, and then talk to people. Like Vincent, he hit me up on my YouTube page and was like, "Hey man, you want to talk about this?" And I was just like blown away that someone
Sure.
actually wanted to talk to me about
Yeah.
the coolest thing in the world.
Well,
So
especially with
definitely.
stuff. Yeah, stuff like this, is like we were made fun of as kids. Like this, like you're a nerd, you're a loser, and now it's like, hey, like let's get together and talk.
Completely agree.
So
Yeah,
it's
like
awesome.
no one. That was I felt so disconnected when I went to school because no one even knew what Final Fantasy was when I talked to people about it at my school. To give you guys an idea, I mean, you guys grew up in the South like I did, but I'm not sure if you had this. My school was surrounded by 4 cow pastures, and people drove their tractors to school. So it was like as like redneck as you could get, and
Okay.
yeah, no one knew
Yeah.
what Final Fantasy or like anime was. So I was definitely it was a challenge, but I wanted to mention, yeah,
I'm
I
with
wanted
you
to mention
100%.
because I want to give credit to Aerith because I love Aerith so much from this game. Like I think at the end of this game, I think she's now currently my favorite character. Um,
Mhm.
I didn't remember her being my favorite as a kid. Like I remember feeling sad, and it was a sad story that played out with her. But I think she's such a great character for video games. Like she made such a great impact on the industry as being like the biggest video game character death and what that meant for those characters in that story. And I have faith and I have hope that they do her justice again. And whatever choices they make, I feel like there's the potential to have this version of Aerith to kind of repeat like the impact, or at least it won't be the same impact, but I feel
Yeah.
like she could still have a big impact on the games industry again, where people start talking about the next installment of Final Fantasy, and they're like, "Whoa, this just blew my mind! Like this character's amazing."
Mhm.
Just to have someone who is as nice as she is, she's also confident. She's snarky. She's fun. She's like she has so many good quips in the game. Like I just and she's fun to play as. Like I love her character so much, and I just felt like I needed to say that. I needed to give some justice to her before I ended this video.
For sure. Hey, just a quick question. Do you guys know or have any opinions about how many more games we're gonna get from like
I
this
wish I
one
did.
game? Like, do you think
There's
it's
no
gonna?
facts yet.
Yeah.
Like there's no official release. In my mind, I keep thinking 3. I think 3 makes the most sense story wise, and with the content they have.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I'm guessing 3. They could do 2. They could do 4. They could do 5. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay.
That's where I'm at
Okay.
too.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
yeah.
I
It's
did.
tough. I mean, what's crazy
Yeah.
is this game is the first 6 hours of the original game, and the original game is like 40 hours long, I think.
Yep.
So there is that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I feel like this was a lot of like setting up the stage, and like this needed to be expanded on for the story they're telling. I feel like the next part of it could be. I don't feel like they have to expand proportionately in every single area for the next part of the game like they did for this part.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy that this was.
Yes, this was just 6 hours of the original.
And I mean, I got 30 out of it. Did you guys
50.
get about the same?
Basically, almost 50.
Woo!
Oh, 40,
I was right at, and I didn't do anything to. I took my, like I said, I didn't grind anywhere, but I did take my time to like speak to like every NPC. I looked around. I didn't like go back and forth or anything, but I did like take my time on a lot of things. I went back and did all the extra challenges. I tried to do all the arena stuff. I did all the pull-ups and the squats and all that. I tried to do like everything the game had, so that's why it took me a little longer.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I at that one point where I wanted to see the story through, I was like, I'm not talking to another human. I'm not doing another side quest. I gotta see how it plays out. But I'll definitely go back and check out the side quest.
I will say, despite how much attention to detail I paid, I messed up and I skipped some of the first side quests with Tifa. Like, I actually didn't do all those side quests. And the reason why is actually I was watching Min-Max and Ben Ham. I was like, oh, they're just side quests. You don't have to play them, and you know you can just skip them. And then in the last video they did, he learned that you get extra cutscenes and stuff, and he just the look on his face, he looked betrayed. He's like, oh my god, I did not know I missed that. and so I did miss some of that beginning stuff, unfortunately. But I'm gonna go back and play through some of the beginning side quests. I did do the rat one though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can talk more in the future.
Yeah.
Stay connected. Keep in touch with each other. I'm glad for us never having a conversation with each other, really, like an in-depth conversation. We were able to hit it off and talk for hours, and it feel natural and be like comfortable. So that's awesome.
For sure.
As always, guys, feel free to reach out to me if you ever need anything. You guys have been amazing. Again, that's Brandon of the. I'm gonna get your guys' names mixed up and stuff. I have a minor dyslexia problems. Hold on. Wait. Okay. So that's Brandon from the Easy Going Gaming on YouTube. And then that's Tim from the Geek Easy Podcast. So be sure to check them out. I'll leave a link for each of their respective links below in the description. So if you want to check that out, just go to the description. Just one click away, you'll be able to easily find it. So you don't have to even worry about Google searching. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Thank you for everyone watching, and catch you next time. Stay awesome.
The video's over, but this was made by our Patreons.
We really appreciate what you've done for us, and we'd appreciate it if you'd continue following us further at patreon.com/Vindicated Entertainment.
Yeah, you guys. Be sure to check out some more of our videos, okay? Bye.
Bye.